Noticed Kaylee go upstairs and scream and run downstairs.
Kernodle, we know that she ordered food and was eating it in that 4 a.m. time period, okay? She was eating her food and she heard commotion upstairs. You remember Maddie and Kaylee are on the 3rd floor. Directly below them, Xana and Ethan. And Xana is eating her food when a commotion starts upstairs. And even though at first they thought maybe it was just, playing with the dog, Xana thought it was something else, and she went up to find out. And I believe, based on what we know at this point, I believe Xana was headed up those stairs because she did shout, there's a man in here. Remember that?
Yeah, sure
and
do.
Heard Kaylee scream.
I heard her scream and run as fast as she could downstairs, and she said someone's here.
Came down to the bottom of the stairs and encountered Xana in the kitchen, in the hallway, or at the front of the pool table, the beer pong table. And we know he did because of the blood spatter. I talk about that at great length in the book. The blood spatter in that room is a map of what happened, right? Pull out the knife, chase her down the hallway, and commit 2 more horrific murders.
I heard her playing music.
How do you know it was her? I guess I should ask that.
It's because I heard her voice, and she's probably singing. I knew for sure it was her when she walked upstairs and she said someone's here. That's how I knew for sure that it was Kaylee.
How do we know that that's when Xana, and it was Xana that was attacked and that she was attacked in the kitchen?
Well, 2 things. One, she was attacked in the kitchen. She's listening on TikTok to videos, and there's a speaker in the kitchen, which logic says she had Bluetooth going to that speaker, and that's what she was listening to. The DoorDash delivery bag is in the kitchen, and actually there's blood of Xana's in the kitchen.
Okay.
Bethany hears the table get hit. So now, if it's not Xana being chased and running that table, who is it? If it's not Xana being chased and running that table, who is it?
Heard Kaylee scream.
I heard her scream and run as fast as she could downstairs, and she said someone's here.
This offender went right upstairs to the 3rd floor, attacked the girls and killed the girls up there, then encountered Xana in the kitchen on the way out, and she ran down the hallway, and they chased her down and killed her and killed Ethan as well.
Kaylee's blood on the pong table, though, Dr. Turvey, destroys that theory. How do you respond to that accusation?
The beer pong table is boring to me. I'm not interested in that. There's so many other bigger issues to talk about. The beer pong table has no relevance in my mind whatsoever.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
Listen to Pavarotti. Can I be your superhero?
Hello, welcome to The Revealing. I am your host, Pavarotti, and I'm here to discuss the Idaho 4 case. And you would think that in this case that we would be bammed out by now, but it's amazing to me. It's just like every day is a new bam. It's a new Bamfest. Welcome to the Bamfest, y'all, of the Liedaho case. I love doing those little timelines because it really keeps me focused on events and things that happen. I do timelines in the investigation. I do timelines outside of the investigation as things are released and things come out of nowhere and kind of blindside us in this case. And just thinking about it from a timeline perspective, I remember a few months back when we finally got the crime scene photos and we could finally put the pictures with the placards, with the released evidence, and we knew exactly what evidence had been tested. And we finally got to learn that the pong table actually had Kaylee's blood all over it, no mixture. And then we get the Sutton report released, and Sutton claims that it was Xana's blood and had Xana in the living room. And then we get the revised report where Nodal corrects her and she finds out that wasn't Xana's blood, it was Kaylee's. Xana's blood isn't anywhere except in the bedroom. And we went, my goodness, let's listen to Dylan. She says Kaylee runs up and down the stairs, and then there's Kaylee's blood right there. And we put together a whole scenario, and it started to catch on. Everybody started talking about it. The truth started to be revealed, in my opinion. But when you start revealing that kind of truth that they've been trying to hide for a long time, as I'm going to show you in this video, that's when things go off the rail for them. So I now know what their kryptonite likely is, in my humble opinion. And it is Kaylee being attacked in the living room. That's why we see these talking heads all coming out trying to explain that away, that specific scenario. They all do it. I hear it everywhere, even though it goes against all the evidence in the case. It's the one thing that I believe Dylan told the truth about, because why else would law enforcement change your story? Because if Kaylee is attacked in the living room, then there are multiple perpetrators in the crime. Plain and simple. And it means Dylan had to hear a lot more than she claimed she heard, and law enforcement knew it. It is their absolute kryptonite. That's the last thing they want us talking about, I assure you. And hold on to your hats, folks, because I'm going to show you something that I've learned here over the last few days by doing a little timelining on the evidence. As I extended it out a little bit, I went, oh my goodness gracious, and I think you will as well. Welcome to a special edition of the Bam Shell in Liedaho. And yeah, Pav did coin the BAMs, for those of you that remember. Let's roll.
Bam, 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 bam.
I was absolutely 1,000% right, in my humble opinion, that we have got Whitcomb, Turvey, and now this other guy coming out trying to hammer the Xana in the kitchen being attacked, running to the bedroom. And it's not for non-nefarious reasons. I mean, discovering that Kaylee was attacked at the stairs at the pong table is the biggest thing in this case, it turns out. And it has got them scared to death, I promise you. I've continued to work on this, and you are going to lose your clothes if you don't have them strapped on tight. So y'all know I've been going through this timeline of when they processed evidence. I got to make one correction. Which one is it? Right here, item 23. That's actually, it's item 23, but it's actually placard number 27. So this was actually the stain that was above the stairwell. Item 27. I'll show it to you here in just a second. But as you go through the evidence, we've already talked about how they only had processed, before they got Kohberger's dad's DNA from the trash, all they had processed was 1.4, 1.1 on the knife sheath, the DNA under the victim's fingernails, the blood sample on Xana's floor. They compared crews to the evidence. They got the L5 fingerprints, and they had compared those to the victims, but that's all they had processed by the time they got Kohberger's dad's DNA. No, I'm sorry. I got this other one right here. They had also processed the blood above the stairwell, the item 27, one of the samples on the switchback stairs, item 24, which is placard number 26, Ethan's blood on the half wall that was transferred, 31.1. They had processed unknown male B, the 2 blood samples from Jack D's apartment. They had already processed also, I didn't put it in here, but they'd already matched the blood in Jack Showalter's apartment back to Jack Showalter and cleared that. But they had also processed the glove DNA. So what they thought here was, when they got Kohberger's dad's trash, I mean, they literally had, this is why Ann Taylor focused on unknown male B, blood on the handrail, unknown male C, blood in Jack D's apartment, and unknown male D, blood on the glove. This is why she was asking for that in that first hearing, because that was the evidence they had against perpetrators. Now, she later went on to stop saying unknown male C because she realized that didn't have anything to do with it, and she focused on B and D. But they had those 3 blood stains, and they had the L5 fingerprint, and they had the DNA under the victim's fingernails. That's what their evidence in the case really was. And the back of the knife sheath 1.4, because that's what they compared everybody to. But then On December 30th, they arrested Kohberger in Pennsylvania, got his hair, his buccal swab, and his fingerprints. Immediately, the FBI compared his hair to the evidence from the crime, cleared him. The Idaho State Police Lab got his fingerprints from Pennsylvania, compared it to L5, cleared him. They bring Kohberger to Liedaho County Jail on the 5th. They go and get his buccal swab again, more fingerprints and more hair. On January the 9th, they test Kohberger's dad against all of the evidence for no apparent reason. On the 10th, the very next day, they tried to compare Xana and Bryan to the L5 toe prints in Xana's room that they made appear with Amido black. They didn't have Kohberger's toe prints, but when they compared it, they knew it was Xana's. So they were trying to get more evidence on him before they ever processed his buccal swab, cleared him from the toe prints. Then on the 21st, they start processing his buccal swab. And then on February 3rd, they matched him to the Q1.1 at 5.37 octillion to 1. We've gone through that. But watch this. So, okay, this was the evidence that I talked about up until the arrest that they had. They had Q1.1, the DNA on the front, Q1.4, the blood DNA on the back. Item 3 is placard number 37, which was this blood by the door in Xana's room, right there where the plate was with the food. L5 fingerprint on the rear slider. 27, which was the little blood that was thrown above the stairwell on the wall, on the west wall above the rail. 41, which was Maddie's blood coming down the stairs. D, which is Ethan's transfer blood. Unknown male B on the handrail, blood in Jack D's apartment, and blood from the glove outside. That's all they had before they arrested him. But now let's extend this thing out just a little bit. On January 21st, that's when they began processing Kohberger's buccal swab at the ISP lab. But in between the time that they did the processing on his buccal swab and February 3rd, where they actually did the comparison to the DNA on the knife sheath, they hurried up and started processing more evidence in the case in between this and this. They processed on January 24th, item 23, blood above the handrail between the first and second floor. Item 26, blood on the half wall. Item 35, blood on Xana's desk in her room. Item 36, blood on Xana's door that was dripping down. Item 39, the pong table with Kaylee's blood. And item 48, the swipe coming into the door with Kaylee's blood. This is when they processed all of this before they ever got to Kohberger's buccal swab. And this is where they would have known that it was just Kaylee's blood on the pong table, and it was just Kaylee's blood being swiped coming from the outside in, going into that room, y'all. Then, after that, was the 5.37 octillion to 1 match to the knife sheath from Kohberger. The only other evidence that they ever tested throughout this case from the house came on April 14th, 2023. And we're going to talk about that because it is a bright, shining red flag, I'll tell you. But just so we're all clear, on the 24th, they processed the blood. This is the blood that's above the handrail going from the second to the first floor. It's item number 72 at the lab, and that was Maddie and Kaylee, or Kaylee and Maddie. Then they processed 26, which is the blood that was strewn all over the half wall dripping. And that was item 73 at the lab. That came back just like this one, Kaylee Maddie. Then they processed number 35, which was the table in Xana's room, which is item number 74. Came back to Xana. I'm trying to make this really clear so everybody knows what DNA samples was tested in this crime and what wasn't. Once you do it like this, it's pretty easy to keep them all straight. On that same day, they processed this blood that was dripping down the door here as Xana opened the door. Number 36 came back to Xana. And this is where they probably had a heart attack because they processed 39, which was the blood on this pong table, and found out it was just Kaylee. And then they processed that door swipe. Well, you got to think about why they're processing these samples. I mean, they're obviously trying to figure out, well, maybe this is some of the perpetrator's DNA. Maybe they were hurt. Maybe this was the perpetrator's blood going back in the room. It came back to just Kaylee, and this came back to just Kaylee. They went, oh my goodness. They stopped testing evidence, and they waited till after they got the match, and then 3 months later, for no reason whatsoever, look, we've got a transfer on the trash can, a transfer on this fuzzy chair, which I can understand, you know, transfers, that makes sense. Even though it's amidst all the other blood that they've already tested that came back to Xana. But they couldn't just test this one by itself because it would be too big of a red flag. So they had to put a couple of things in there for testing along with X. Now, X is the blood swipe going out the door in Maddie's room. And they came back to Kaylee and Maddie mixture. These both came back to Xana. But this one right here, when I think about all of the blood that was tested and the blood that wasn't, like for example, like when we look at this area with all this blood, they never test two samples together. They tested Ethan's blood here, but they didn't test his blood on top over here. This wall only had the one sample, so they tested it. The handrail had unknown male B right here, but it also had a C right here that they didn't test. So they tested this one, but they didn't test this one right next to it. They didn't test A up here. They didn't test 24 because they tested 23. So why would they test these? Why would they test this? They never test blood that's next to the other samples throughout this whole thing. When you get to the living room, you got blood all over this wall. They've got it marked with different markers. They tested 26, but they didn't test 25, W, or V because they tested 26. They don't test blood that's next to other blood. They assume with one test whose blood it is. Yet, when we go to switchback stairs, they tested this one, but they didn't test the two on the other side of the handrail here. They didn't test the swipes down there where you go around the stairs. They didn't test the stain on the wall there either. They didn't test any of that because they tested this one. They assumed what those other stains would come back to. So, when I get to this, so based on every other piece of evidence in the house, whenever there's a blood sample, they never test the ones around it. Yet when we look at this, we had 48 here, which they actually tried to wipe off. You can see when they put the 48 sticker, you can barely see that thing. But when we look at the other recent 48, I mean, that thing is clear as day. It's swiping from outside in. They were trying to hide this one. It almost seems like, but I don't think they could have known back then to hide it. But there's no reason with these two samples so close together, both being swipes, there's no reason to ever test X right here. But they did. Why? It's a red flag. So I look into X and I go, man, this just doesn't seem right for them to even test this one later on. Is there anything weird around it? And oh my goodness, is there? So when we go to report number 31, and I'm looking for discrepancies around X, which is item number 126, marker X. And then right away, I see this report has been amended, stamped right across the front of it. And this is report 31. So then I move forward in time to report 34. And look, it's the exact same report. The only difference is this one says 34 and this one says 31. And this one has this extra stamp right here. It says, this report, amends report 31, issued on 4/17/2023. See, 4/17/2023 was when this report was produced. And the reason for the amendment is previous notes packet, missing explanation for sample reinjection. So this one must have had a sample reinjection error, and they just didn't put the notes packet with it, right? And look, this was on June 16th, 2023. This was almost 2 months later, exactly 2 months later. So what's the deal with this? So I looked through it. And I see that on the original report 31, you've got the load sheet, and it was dated March 22nd, 2023. It's always this load sheet with this lab. And I can see that Q126 was in the load. And look, there's no comment, no errors, nothing in their comment section. So I don't know why they say that the notes packet is missing. There's no note packet missing. It's right. There's no injection error. So you wouldn't need a notes packet, right? Because that's internal with the computer. And this was done on March 22nd. But then when I look at the amended report, it's the same report. Look, March 22nd, 2023, Q126. But down here, instead of having this empty comments block that the report should produce automatically, look, here's what was really in the report for 126. Re-injected for 10 seconds due to failed sizing quality. Also failed. Data not used. Sample reset. Re-injected for 10 seconds due to low-level data. Re-injected 10 seconds to match most stringent conditions. Well, how did that not get in the comments section when you first produced this report? And why does it just happen to be around this one sample that I think is very suspicious? Isn't that something? And why would that sample be so suspicious? Well, because that's the one where they try to prove that Kaylee was attacked in the room with Maddie. Because without something to prove that there was some kind of transfer of Kaylee and Maddie on that door with the other one, then they are dead in the water on Kaylee being attacked in the living room. That's why they would do it. And then when I go to the STR report, I mean, it's exactly the same. Okay, 70-30, Kaylee and Maddie. But then I look at this and I go, well, all right, so they get Kohberger's buccal swab, they hurry up and they process all this evidence, and they go, oh my God, Kaylee's blood's on the pong table, just Kaylee's blood's on the door swiping in. Kaylee was attacked in the living room. This whole case is about to really go out the window. So they hurry up and match Kohberger to the evidence, and then they run these two samples, probably for no reason other than to try to hide them running this one, because there's no reason to run this one when it's right next to another one, and they don't do that anywhere in this case. But then they have to amend this report and show all of the injection errors and everything else, but they do it 2 months down the road. How did they even catch it? They're not that sharp in that lab. What happens between 4/14 and 6/16 when they fix this report? Oh yeah, Bryan Kohberger is indicted by the grand jury. So you can bet that Kaylee was attacked in the living room. They know it, and they've been trying to hide it since the very beginning because they know it destroys their entire case. And that's why we got talking heads coming out trying to talk around that scenario in every which way they can. Y'all let me know your thoughts, please.
Bam, 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 bam.
This isn't something new. Hiding Kaylee being attacked in the living room isn't something new. It's something that they realized way back in January of 2023, and they realized it would destroy their entire case. The more people that talk about this, because it's what the factual evidence shows, the more pressure we're going to put on them to do the right thing, I assure you. Please like and subscribe to this channel. Post your comments, thoughts, criticisms. Till next time, Pavarotti's out.
Fly away. It's the first time of today.